This week's book, Character Carved in Stone by Pat Williams. This book is about 12 core virtues of West Point. Of course, West Point is the military academy. It's one of the top schools in the nation, and it's where a lot of our famous leaders were trained. Some of the presidents like Ulysses Grant and Dwight D. Eisenhower. Also some of the famous generals like Douglas MacArthur and Omar Bradley. Also Buzz Aldrin came out from West Point. So the school produced some of our top leaders in history. And Pat gives an example of a West Point graduate who demonstrated one or more of the leadership traits covered in this book, dating all the way back to Civil War to present day war on terror. And the 12 traits are as follows: compassion, courage, dedication, determination, dignity, discipline, integrity, loyalty, perseverance, responsibility, service, and trust. And West Point looks over the Hudson River, and there's 12 granite benches. And on each of these benches are engraved one of these traits, so that when cadets walk by the river and they see these benches, they can be inspired and reminded of these timeless leadership virtues. And I was intrigued that the first characteristic was compassion. It's not something you think of immediately when you think about leadership, but a true warrior is compassionate. And a lot of the most effective leaders show a lot of compassion. And compassion should not be confused with cowardice. It's not just avoiding controversy. It's not trying to sugarcoat things. But true compassion is being strong and also having showing heart when necessary. And President Grant, who was a general in the Civil War, who is now on the $50 bill, showed a lot of compassion. When he was a poor man, his father-in-law actually gave him a slave, and he could have sold the slave for a lot of money, but instead he chose to free the man. That's just one example of his compassion. And he was just known among his men as a very respectable and compassionate man with a big heart. When he won a battle against one of his former classmates, he saved them humility. He saved them shame by, not demanding the formal surrender procedures. He also offered to help his friend with money, after the surrender, because his friend would be, facing, war crimes. So in many ways, President Grant showed a lot of compassion as a leader. Another leader that really stood out was Matthew Ridgway. He was a general during World War II. And his 82nd Airborne Division was scheduled to parachute into Normandy at D-Day. And he was scheduled to arrive 24 hours later when the premise was secure. As a general, you usually do that. But instead, he chose to jump out of airplane and parachute in with his troops as a general. And this was to show his men that he was right there with them, and that he's also facing the same risk as his men. And once he landed in Normandy, he would go to foxhole and be right there by his men, where the action was. And he was able to gain the love and respect of the men that served for him. So there's countless stories like this where great leaders just demonstrated all of these characteristics. And I think these traits are somewhat rare, but when applied, they can be very powerful and effective. The book ends with the following quote: Whether you have drilled and studied and trained on the West Point grounds or have never been within 1,000 miles of the academy, these are the character traits that will make you a leader, that will make you successful, that will enable you to live your life with honor and perhaps with heroism. It's a great book. I say check it out.